This story is called I'm in the Zoo Too. And it's about squirrels, wild creatures, and animals that live in zoo in cages or enclosures. Burl the squirrel was a young, curious squirrel who lived with his mother and father and brothers and sisters in a great maple tree in the middle of the zoo. All day long, Burl's family spent most of their time searching for and eating food. Burl helped too, but he was so curious. He spent some of his time as well watching the wild animals that were in cages and in enclosures around the zoo. He had many things to think about. He wondered, why do the zookeepers bring food to the animals? Why don't they bring food to Burl and his family? So one day he asked his father as they were eating their dinner, and his father said, "Well, Burl, the zookeepers don't bring us food because we're not in the zoo." "Yes, we are," said Burl. "We live in the maple tree in the zoo." "Well, not really," said Burl's mother. "We live in the zoo, but we're not in the zoo." Well, Burl didn't understand the difference. And so the next day after breakfast, he set off to talk to some of his animal friends in the zoo. From across the zoo, he heard the peacock calling. Now, the peacock wasn't very friendly. He'd even whacked Burl on the head with his wing one time when Burl got a little too close to the peacock's feed tray. But listening to that big bird make his call made Burl think that maybe he could help him with his questions. So he scurried across the zoo to where the peacock was strutting around. "Peacock," said Burl, "tell me, what do you have to do to be in the zoo?" "Well," said the peacock, "you have to have a beautiful tail." And he turned his back on Burl and spread out the feathers of his great tail and began to shake it and call, "Arr, arr, arr, arr." "That is a beautiful tail," said Burl. "But I have a beautiful tail too." And Burl turned his back on Peacock and shook his own fluffy gray tail. Peacock looked over his shoulder at Burl's squirrel tail. Said Peacock, "Your tail's not bad, but to have a beautiful tail, it has to have blue and green and gold spots. That's why I'm in the zoo." Well, Burl wasn't sure about that answer. He thought he'd go see another more friendly creature. So he scurried along the path until he came to the enclosure where Panda was sitting. Panda had a bunch of bamboo in each front paw, and he was sitting, munching first on some leaves from one paw and then some leaves from the other paw. "Hi, Burl," said Panda. "Nice of you to visit me." "Yes, well, I'm hoping you can help me," said Burl. "Tell me, what did you have to do to be in the zoo?" "Well," said the panda, "you have to be cute to be in the zoo. Don't you think I'm cute with my black and white face and my big tummy?" Yes, said Burl, I do. But I can be cute too. I can wrinkle my nose up and I can wiggle my nose and my ears at the same time. Well, that's pretty cute, said Panda, but I don't know. I don't think it's cute enough for you to be in the zoo for. Well, Burl decided to talk to another friend of his. He liked Panda because she was so sweet and cute. But now he went to see Gorilla, who looked so strong and fierce, but was actually sweet and gentle. Burl found Gorilla lying flat on the floor of his enclosure, looking up at the sky. Hi, Gorilla. Hi, Burl. Listen, tell me, what do you have to do to be in the zoo? I'll show you, said Gorilla. And he jumped up, and in a deep, fierce voice, he began to holler, and he began to beat his chest. Ah! And as he did, he ran down toward the fence where some people were watching him. When he came close, they stepped back. Oh my goodness, what was this fierce gorilla going to do? Gorilla turned back around and said, see, you have to be fierce to be in the zoo. Well, Burl knew that as a small gray squirrel, he couldn't possibly be fierce, but maybe he could find some other way to be in the zoo. He thought, I'll just go talk to Lion. As he scurried across the zoo, he came to the enclosure where Lion was lying on a big flat rock in the middle of an island on the other side of a moat that kept him safe and kept the people safe too. Burl jumped the moat and scurried over to stand next to Lion. Lion was basking in the sun, and people on the other side of the moat were taking his picture. Click, 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 click. Lion was not fierce. Burl knew he didn't have to be afraid of him, even though he was big with sharp teeth, because Lion was lazy. He liked to lie in the sun and just watch. Lion, tell me, what do you have to do to be in the zoo? You see those people taking my picture, said Lion? That's what you have to do. You have to be something that people want to take pictures of. Clink. Well, look at that, said Burl. That person just took my picture. No, said Lion. They were taking my picture. You just got in the way. Well, Burl thought that was maybe true. He scurried away, thinking about being in the zoo. Maybe having your own cage or special place would help. He thought, there's an empty cage over in the monkey section between the gibbons and the colobus monkeys. I'll go see about that empty cage. When he got there, he found the cage door standing open. He scurried inside and hopped up onto the swing that was hanging from the ceiling of the cage. He began to swing back and forth. I'm in the zoo too, I'm in the zoo too, he sang. You are not in the zoo, said the colobus monkey next door. You're just a gray squirrel. I'm an eastern gray squirrel. Thank you very much, said Burl. Well, whatever, said the colobus monkey. You're not in the zoo. Well, Burl began to do tricks all over the cage. He leaped from side to side in one bound. He hung by his toes as he swung on the swing. He did flips and turns and climbed up and down all over the inside of the cage. After a while, some people stood in front of that open door. One of the children said, "Look, there's a squirrel in that cage." And somebody else actually took his picture. Click! That made Burl feel very happy. Later in the day, a zookeeper came to put a tray of food in the colobus monkey's cage. But all he did when he walked by the cage where Burl was slam the door shut. "Hey," said Burl, "he didn't leave me any food," as he watched the zookeeper walk away. "Too bad," said the colobus monkey. "Maybe tomorrow." "Tomorrow? I can't wait till tomorrow. It's time for dinner and I'm hungry. Where's my food? I've got to get out and get home for dinner." Well, Burl jumped down from the swing and went to the cage door. But when he pushed on it, it wouldn't open. "Hey, how do you get out?" "You don't," said the colobus monkey. "No, I mean, when you want to get out of your cage, how do you get out?" "I don't get out," said the colobus monkey. Oh dear. Burl was beginning to understand. As it got dark, the people left the zoo, and Burl, all alone in the cage, was cold and lonely, and his stomach was growling so loudly. But he found a corner of the cage to curl up in and wrapped himself in his great fluffy tail. His stomach growled so hard that he had trouble getting to sleep. But the next thing he knew was waking up when the sun rising warmed his fur. He looked around. He was still in the cage. He was surprised that he had slept so long. As he lifted his head and looked out of the cage, there at the door was a zookeeper. "What are you doing in there?" asked the zookeeper as he unlocked the cage door and pulled it open and stepped inside. Burl hopped up, and in a flash, he ran through the zookeeper's legs and out the cage door. He ran back to his family's maple tree just as fast as he could. His family was having breakfast. "Burl, where have you been?" said his father. "I've been in the zoo." "Oh," said his mother. "What was that like?" Burl didn't answer. He scurried into his family's nest and began munching on some nuts that he found there. He was so hungry. As he ate, he began to think about living in the zoo and being in the zoo. He thought he didn't want to be in the zoo ever again. But it might be nice to go and visit his friends, Panda and Gorilla, and maybe do tricks in their trees and have people take his picture from time to time. But not every day. He could do it occasionally and still be home in plenty of time for dinner. And that is I'm in the Zoo Too.